This message is entitled Key to Open the Door of Divine Favor, and we're going to take it from the book of Acts, chapter 12. This message is for babes, intermediate, and deep. Now, if you're babe, you drink your milk or beverage of choice. If you're intermediate, you consume some puree, or if you're deep, then eat some meat. So, some of you may know that the book of Acts is actually volume 2. And if you don't, well, here's some new information for you. So, the book of Luke is the author of these two volumes. The book of Luke is volume 1, and the book of Acts is volume 2. And the interesting thing about Luke is the four Gospels are very unique. Matthew talks about parables and mysteries, and Mark's a companion book for Matthew. But when you read Luke, Luke is a little bit different, and that's because he was in the medical field. He was either a scientist, but at least he was in the medical field. And so, just in case you self righteous folks think that everyone in science or the medical field is evil, well, here it is a strong believer, a scientist, or a medical personnel writing about Jesus and believing in God. So, it's not everyone that does science or is in the medical field is evil. God has his people everywhere. So, Luke is volume 1 and Acts is volume 2. And when you read Luke, Luke is unique because Luke shows the light system and how Jesus came here and established the light, the kingdom of light here on earth, and how he show or exemplify the way in which to use the light system here on earth. And then you see in the book of Acts, the Acts of the apostle take the light, when the light was activated in them, activated in the apostles, they took their teaching, what they have learned from Jesus, and continued. There were successes and continued to function in that system and establish the kingdom of light here on earth. So this message is going to coast on light shining into Peter's dark mindset. Now let's get right into it. Acts chapter 12. And so it starts off with Herod. Now, about that time, Herod the king stretched forth his hand to vex certain of the church. Now, when you learn about the hand, back in the days or in ancient time, when a king would stretch forth his hand, that meant death. So he was stretching forth death to Peter and to James. So anytime you see the hand stretching forth, if you're having a dream and it's sinister or dark or evil, you perceive or discern that it was an evil dream and you only saw hands, then most likely God is trying to show you that someone is sending death at you, or death is activated against you. So that is a key when you're dreaming hands. It all pertains to the dream or the nature of the dream. So that's one way you could discern or sort of dissect your dream if you have a dream about hand. Now I'm saying that all dreams about hands are like death, but you have to learn how to read your dreams. So it also said about to vex certain of the church. So the way the kingdom of darkness works is that they will always start off against the church, against the body. And if they can't get their way, then they'll go to the government and use the authorities to come against the church. And we're going to see that in here, in both cases. First, Herod didn't get his way, or the enemy did not get his way to attack the church by killing James and then trying to kill Peter. So then he's going to go to the government, which is Herod, and try to destroy the church or the body. And verse 2 says, and he killed James, the brother of John, with the sword. And because he saw it pleased the Jews, he proceeded forth to take Peter also. Then were the days of the unleavened bread. Those were two of Jesus' inner circle, and Peter was his inner circle. Usually, the kingdom of darkness will always come for the inner circle, or if you have an enemy or frenemy, they'll always try to destroy your inner circle so they could leave you alone. If you ever notice that you have a friend and all of a sudden they're trying to divide you or separate you from your friendship, know that the enemy is at work. Here it is that one was killed, one of Jesus' inner circle was killed, and then the other was taken prisoner. So let's see what happens to this prisoner. So the interesting thing about Herod was full of himself. He was full of pride. He's like Leviathan or Jezebel, and they're all about murder because pride goes before a fall. It's the same as Nebuchadnezzar or Saul. All of these cases, pride was going before a fall. Nebuchadnezzar turned into an animal because of his pride, or lost his kingship because of his pride. Started off in 1 Samuel 13, where there was a correlation of Saul's kingship. And by 1 Samuel 15, Saul, at the beginning of the chapter, you see that Saul was given instruction by God as to what to do. Kill everybody. The mother, the children, the baby on the breast, the cow, the goat, the sheep. No oxtail, no goat stew, no curry goat, no steak, no lamb chops, no tenderloin, nothing. Kill everybody. But Saul decided that he wanted to please the people. When you read a little lower down, he wanted to please the people, so he did what he wanted. And that's always a telltale sign. If you want to know if someone is carrying the fruit, or you shall know them by their fruit, one of the telltale signs, are they seeking to please God, or are they seeking to please people? This is the case with anyone that wants to please people. Jeremiah 17:5 says, "Cursed is the man that trusteth in man, and maketh flesh his arm, and whose heart depart from the Lord." Jeremiah 17:7 says, "Blessed is the man that trusteth in the Lord, and whose hope is in the Lord." Verse 9 says, "The heart is deceitful above all things, and desperately wicked. Who can know it?" Also, Psalm 146:3 says, "Do not put your trust in princes, nor in a son of man, in whom there is no help." John 2:24 says, "But Jesus did not commit himself unto them, because he knew all men." So here are quite a few scriptures talking about pleasing people doesn't lead to anything good, or the nature of pleasing is not really accepted. So let's continue reading. "And when he had apprehended him, he put him in prison, and delivered him to 4 quaternions of soldiers to keep him, intending after Easter to bring him forth to the people." And the key word here is quaternions. And it's important to note that everything starts in the spiritual before it's manifested in the physical. So the quaternions are the strong men in the spiritual realm. And it's so important to see here that the enemy has put 16 strong men to guard Peter. And there are 4 watches. There are 4 for the night watch. And in verse 4, it talks about 4 concordance. So 4 concordance, those are 4 in one watch, 4 in another, 4 in another, and 4 in another. That's 16. Now, quaternion means guard consisting of 4 number of guards to which the custody of captives and prisoners were entrusted. And here it is that it needed 16 guards to keep this one man, or this one person captive, this one person a prisoner. And it's because that Peter had such a strong calling on his life, and he was so close to God. He had such an important role. And this goes across all board. It's not only in the church where it's the fivefold, or the evangelist, or the prophet, or the preacher, or the teacher, or the apostle. It's not only that. It also goes across all board. It could be someone that the next big invention, or someone in the medical field that's going to make a medical breakthrough, or someone with a mathematical mind, come up with equations or solve any problem. It could be any aspect of life, or someone that's just ridiculously talented. Like the talent doesn't even make sense. It doesn't seem like it should even exist. It could be any, and then you hear their story, and they have these kind of stories that doesn't even make sense. Like, how are you going for this and you're so talented? How did you go for this and you're so gifted? Most likely that they were Quaternions guarding their life in every watch of their night. And so this situation is with Peter in the night. So that would say if there are four watches of the night, then that means they had four strong men in each watch of the night to guard and make sure that joy did not come in Peter's morning, or his mercy was not renewed every morning. And that's key to know that sometimes you go to bed and it seems like you just wake up and nothing happened. That is why the key is prayer. That is why men are to always pray. The scriptures say, watch and pray, watch and pray. The spirit indeed is willing, but the flesh is weak. We need to pray always, because we have no idea the devices of the enemy or what he's raging against us. But we are to always watch and pray. And so the Holy Spirit led me to the book of Joel, chapter 2, verse 25. And he said there's a correlation here. Now, when you read it in the King James Version, it says the locust, the cankerworm, the caterpillar, and the palmerworm. But then when you read it in the NLT, you realize that it's all different types of locusts. There is the swarming locust, the hopping locust, the stripping locust, and the cutting locust. And they're all different types that attack different watches of your night. So the swarming locust, in the Hebrew definition, is swarming, ability to densely cover large, destructive, short-horned grasshoppers. So they will most likely eat your crop or eat your finances or your field of employment, keep you unemployed. So that is the swarming locust. It spreads wide and it destroys vast areas of your life, different aspects of your life. That's the swarming locust. It densely covers many areas of your life, keeping it in darkness. And then the hopping locust is a leopard, to leap like a frog in its early stage. It's like an early stage of a locust. It is less mobile and it's easier to destroy. This type of locust is easy to destroy. It's the same as when Jesus told Cain, sin is knocking at your door. This is something that you could deal with, something you detect, that you could pray, that you could handle most time on your own. You could resist the devil and he will flee. This is one of the situations that you could deal with in the early stage. And then there is the stripping locust, which says it's a devourer. Remove garment, armor, covering, virtue, honor, destiny, dignity, anointing. So this is the stripping locust. It strips you of your value. It strips you of your worth. It strips you of your confidence. It strips you. It brings you low. These are people who suffer with anxiety and depression, low self-esteem, rejection. All of this, it just strips you of anything of your identity. These are people that have identity crisis. And then here we have the cutting locust, which is the shearer, to shear wool from the sheep. We know that this is a version that Jesus usually called us his sheep. And he, in the last days, he's going to separate the sheep from the goats. So it shears the wool or the covering or the garment of the sheep to share from destiny, marriage, inheritance. Remove all good things from your life, stagnation, delay. This is the share. So there's a correlation. The Holy Spirit was showing me that these locusts, cankerworm, caterpillar, and palmerworm that we usually talk about or recite are actually strong men. And how he showed it is that they're like concordance. They are soldiers that guard the watches. They're gatekeepers that make sure you never enter into the gate, you never enter into that doorway, or you never have access to that door of whatever it is that you need access to. Peter therefore was kept in prison, but prayer was made without ceasing of the church unto God for him. Intercession, which echoes Galatians 6:2. Bear ye one another's burden, and so fulfill the law of Christ. In James 5:16. Confess your faults one to another, and pray for one another, that ye may be healed. The effectual fervent prayer of a righteous man availeth much. Philippians 2:3-4. Let nothing be done through strife or vainglory, but in lowliness of mind let each esteem other better than themselves. Look not every man on his own things, but every man also on the things of others. And my favorite, Ecclesiastic 4:9-12. Two are better than one, because they have a good reward for their labor. For if they fall, the one will lift up his fellow. But woe to him that is alone when he falleth, for he hath not another to help him. Again, if two lie together, then they have heat. But how can one be warm alone? And if one prevail against him, two shall withstand him. And a threefold cord is not quickly broken. Which correlates with, how should one chase 1,000, and two put 10,000 to flight, except their rock had sold them, and the Lord had shut them up. Deuteronomy 32:30. So I'm not sure where Peter mind was, but based on the fact that his best friend Jesus was just crucified, his best friend was just killed, and now he's taken captive with 2 chains, guards inside confined with him, 16 guards, keepers keeping watch. So it's most likely that Peter found himself in the valley of the shadow of death. His mind was in the valley of the shadow of death. He was downcast. His soul was downcast. He was probably in some dungeon. His soul was in captive in some dungeon or region or some place, some destructive mindset where the enemy, that is where how the enemy does. I'm talking about how the enemy in the spiritual realm. So it would seem that Peter, part of his soul, was caged away in some pocket dimension. But here it is, because of the prayers, it opened the door for divine favor. Because of intercession or the fervent prayer being made for Peter, the key of intercession was activated to open the door of divine favor, to open that place that Peter was locked in the spiritual realm. And you see it manifested here in the physical realm in verse 7. Intercession is the key that activated so that the door of divine favor could work for Peter. And let's read. And behold, the angel of the Lord came upon him, and light shine in his darkness, and light shine in the prison. According to Proverbs 12:25, it says, anxiety or heaviness in the heart of man causes depression, but a good word make it glad. So Peter had anxiety in his heart. He was weighed heavy with his impending or intended death. He knew that more than likely that was it. Jesus was crucified, James is gone, and now they have me with these Quaternions. I'm next. That's pretty much what Peter was saying. But verse 7, the intercession key opened the door of divine favor for Peter. And behold, the angel of the Lord came upon him, and light shined in Peter's darkness. Light shine in his prison. The people which sat in darkness saw great light, and to them which sat in the region and shadow of death, light is sprung up. That is Matthew 4:16. So light shine in Peter's dark mindset. Because the key of intercession was activated, light shine. So God is using an example of the light system, but this is literally a version of God of how he shines his light into our darkness. So we have an example of how he comes and take care of us when we are found captives or when we are in prison in the spiritual realm or in the physical realm, where he makes a way for us. And one of the keys that can be used is intercession, because sometimes someone is such in a lonely place that they can't pray for themselves. And Peter found himself a little heavy, a little anxious of his situation, but because he had others that was praying for him, lifting him up, that fervent prayer made a way for him. Normally, when you're discouraged, you get that gut plunging feeling, because your gut is the dwelling place for discouragement, which is the worms or locusts. That's why the angel needed to smite Peter on his side to knock out doubt and discouragement. Different forms of discouragement in relations to Joel 2:25 are: the swarming locust discourages in your field, as in employment or finances, being plagued with poverty, lack, hardship. The hopping locust discourages in launching, as in failure to launch, which leads to anxiety, depression, disappointment, stagnation, delay. The stripping locust discourages in protection, as in parents, guardians, guide, counsel, church, armor, garment, covering. One will have identity confusion, no worth, low self esteem, devalued, shame, indignity. And the cutting locust discourages in communion, as in communication, friendship, relationship, marriage, childbearing, which leads to loneliness, isolation, self sabotage.